Welcome everybody to Red's Ramblings. Today, for me, I feel it's a special episode. I have Jhae Pfenning, the host of Hard Parking Podcast. I think I can consider you a friend. Like, you've helped me out on quite a few things. We haven't known each other that long, obviously, not even a year, but I'm fairly new to the podcast scene. Anytime I've had a question, you've generally been easy and open on helping me out, whether it be like this microphone or just general questions, sponsor related or anything like that. So I want to first thank you for that and thank you for coming on the show. But Jhae, go ahead and introduce yourself to my viewers who don't know anything about you.
Yeah, they probably don't know me or anything about me, but first off, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I'm going to blame 2020 because a lot of us kind of came up, and I've had my podcast not that long, since 2019, like the second half of 2019. But I used to listen to a lot of national shows. That's all I did all day at work. Is I'd put on my podcast, I'd listen to one on the way to work, and sometimes I'd listen to music, but usually it's just other people talking. And through last year, it's like you were able to connect with so many. We're all indie podcasters, right? Grassroots podcasters. So you're able to connect with so many of them. And then you find the ones within that group that, you gel with a little better. Right. Not that you don't like other people, but you know what I mean. And so it's been just as big of a treat for me to interact with someone like yourself, than maybe it was for you just to get some advice. Because I don't know everything, but I don't hide stuff. So I don't mind sharing what I know, because there's so many of us. It's ridiculous for someone to think, well, if I help you out, you're taking a piece of my pie. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Other than that, like you said, my name's Jhae Pfenning. I have a podcast, a Hard Parking Podcast. It's the automotive, non-automotive podcast. And this guy right there will tell you that if you're expecting to hear nothing but cars, that's not it. If you're expecting to hear some stories of life, some travels, a little bit of cars for everyday people, it's my show. I can do whatever the hell I want.
There you go. That's it right there.
And so I try to have fun with it. I try to educate people. I try to share who it is I am, and I also try to share who my guests are. In fact, you have a recurring segment coming up on Hard Parking Podcast, The Other Side of the Wheel, which is the shorter, believe it or not, more car centric episodes. And yeah, other than that, that's some people know me from my car. A lot of people actually know me from my car, but I'm more than just a car guy. There you go. He has one. That's the second miniature model.
For those that are watching, this is a replica of a car that, I mean, it was his. It is his.
Still mine. It's still in the garage.
Yes, in the garage. Not wrapped like he was saying before we started recording, but. So that's a quick rundown on who you are and your show. I want to know, and one of the reasons why I asked to have you on is to know the everyday Jhae, right? Because I'll be upfront. When I first found, I don't even remember how I came across your show.
And we're in the same little podcast group.
If you say so. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I remember. That's kind of hard to miss.
That is true. See, you're right. But so in listening to your show, I thought, well, this is a car guy. Like his day job is something car related. Quickly found out that is not the case.
No.
Your day job has nothing to do with cars.
No.
Can you say what your day job is? I know you said it before.
So I'm a professional cleaner. And so what that really means is sometimes I'm asked to come take out the garbage. So I do a lot of flying around the world. I clean up a lot of people's messes, both financial and political. And usually I do it without a trace. And it's very lucrative. It pays well. But what? Okay, you want to know what I tell everybody? My cover story for being
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I tell everybody I do healthcare IT, because the IT world, healthcare isn't going anywhere. Right. Although there's a lot of us, we are overhead. So when there's a financial crisis, we're the first to go somewhere usually. But other than that, that's what I do. Yeah, I work on electronic medical records with a focus in radiology for one of the softwares out there. I've been doing that since 2008, and usually I'm traveling every week since 2012, with the occasion of a couple years that I took a full-time job, or of course last year, not a lot of traveling was going on. So that's what I do as my day job.
Yeah, I remember when
I'd rather be a cleaner.
Right. I think it was some comedian. Was it a Kevin Smith movie? It was like Codename the Cleaner, whatever that movie. It was like some like dunce, and yeah, like he got picked to like go assassinate people and whatnot. It was something Codename the Cleaner. And so yeah, that's why that had me laughing, because I'm like, no.
Have you seen Grosse Point Blank?
No.
Yeah. So John Cusack. It's a funny. I want to say it's a '90s movie, but it's a high school reunion, and that's what he basically was doing after high school. Was a professional cleaner. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. John Cusack, yeah, he was good back in the day. You don't hear much.
Yeah, that was during his heyday where he was in a bunch of movies.
Yeah.
And then he had some movie my wife and I watched where it was based on a true story up in Canada, where he was basically a mass murderer, serial murder, and that was pretty good too.
My wife probably knows exactly what that is.
Yeah.
But so you have this love of the automotive world. Why didn't you go that route career-wise?
I think for a lot of us, because and I think you heard the episode, Are You a Car Person or Not? I think a lot of us like cars, but we're not so far. If you hear noise in the background, my niece is over here.
That's all good.
We're not so far into cars where it becomes our career. Now, dream job for me coming out of high school was to either work for Nike, design shoes and stuff, or to design cars. Transportation. I've always liked transportation. I still like transportation. I like the weirdest ones too, because when I'm driving by and I see like a little Bobcat, those little miniature little tractor bulldozer thingies. I'm always like, I want that. I don't know why
I've driven one. They're fun.
I just want to drive. I just want to drive around and like tear up people's yards. I don't know. I just like moon rovers and stuff like that. I just think they're awesome looking. So I thought I was going to design cars. I wanted to design cars, but I'm rediscovering myself in this interview. I also wanted to be a road and track editor because I like writing.
Right.
But at some point along the way, you kind of lose focus of dreams. Maybe your priorities shift, and then it just became being an illustrator. And I have works of stuff that I've drawn here in the office, but I haven't really drawn anything since like 95, 96. But they're pretty good. But I realized along the way, it really wasn't about the cars. It wasn't about the sports figures, and I'm looking around at them. I think it was more about the passion you have towards something. And I found that I think that's really my niche in life, is find something that I can be passionate about, find something that I can, and it's really about people. Not to sound cliche, but even in the stuff I do today, I mean, I don't want to do healthcare IT forever.
Right.
I don't care about that shit, but I'm good with people. I'm good working with people. I'm good with communication and bridging the gaps with people. And that's really, I think, where my skill point is. People who know me, my wife, some of my extended family might disagree. And they always tell me I'm wasting all this talent. But I don't think you really waste talent. You just find ways to use it. Right? Because the outside world sees it as one thing, but the reality is only you know what it is. It's really inside. And not to go off on a tangent, because that's what I do, and you know that if you listen to the podcast, which you do. But it's like I equate everything that I do, like these drawings, me wasting my talent, to a sports person, right? A sports athlete. So you can be all city middle school, right, in football, and you go play high school football. You may not even start. Now, let's say you're high school football and you're all city, and you go to college. You're one of 105 players on that roster, and so everybody back in your hometown, you're the town hero. You're the best athlete to ever leave that town. On a national level, that's where you find out how good you really are. And I think learning where you are in the pecking order helps you define where you want to go in a career or direction. And so I was in art school and I looked around and there was a ton of people in class that were just so much better at drawing than me, but they didn't have some of those other skills that I have.
Right.
And I decided that because I went to art center in not art center, Pasadena, California, that's where I wanted to go. I went to Kendall College of Art and Design in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I decided that I didn't want to spend 6 months designing the next new coffee cup. I wanted to do something else because the design process is long, it's tedious, and it's not all glamorous. But everyone told me I was at the wrong school because they knew I wanted to design cars. I just never got back to that. So that's why I'm not doing anything in the car industry. But, as you see, like with the wrap that's on my car right here,
right.
It's based on Macross or Robotech, but I've designed 100% of this wrap that was on my car. And so when the opportunity comes, I use that passion and that focus and that attention to detail in some other way, just like the podcast. It's like being able to help you with your sound and telling you what to get, because I have the passion, I have the attention to detail to want to help myself and other people. So that's why I'm not doing anything with cars for a career. But it's fun. So I wouldn't say I'm huge in the car community, but there's definitely people who know who I am.
Yeah.
And know my car. So.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like it probably also helps that you do have a weird spelling of your name, because you just Google your name and you pop up. The car is number one that pops up.
Lord help us.
But yeah, like because I remember your interview with John Sabal, probably my favorite so far that you've had.
He's such a good guy.
Dude, that was an amazing interview, because I think that was an interview also where I learned, like you just mentioned, your passion for art and drawing and design. And I was like, that was another time that hit me. I was like, yo, every time I think I'm starting to know Jay, something else comes around, because I thought he was a car guy, and his shows, he got like IT stuff and audio stuff, and now he has a passion for art and design. I'm like, what else is going to come out? Like, what else is this man doing that I have no idea about? So in listening to that one, because he designs cars, he drew and illustrated, I can't remember the term, that his actual job. Inker, right. I think he worked for both of them at one point, right? DC and Marvel?
I mean, he still does work for Marvel Comics. He's got over 100 and something titles that he's contributed to. He still works for DC Comics. I think Image Comics, which was McFarlane, Spawn, those guys.
Hell yeah.
He used to do that as well. So, I mean, and you'd never know it unless you just spent a long time trying to dig into cracking who is John Sabal outside of a car designer.
Yeah. Right.
And he's working on like year 1 Batman book 2 or book 3 or something right now.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh damn. Okay. I mean, I'm not a big Batman fan, but my son would absolutely love that right now.
Batman's a shit, but I hear you.
Batman's that's a whole different episode, sir.
Okay. All right.
So what would you say was your first passion growing up? Was it art, or was it cars, or was it something you've totally let go?
I would say it's probably both cars and art. I mean,
what was the catalyst for that? What jump started that?
I have no idea. Yeah. And I think I don't know. A lot of people say they know the moment when. I find that really hard to believe for a lot of us. Because I could say I remember when my dad came in and saw my drawing of the Statue of Liberty and said, "Oh my God, this kid's got talent." Like, no, I would never remember no shit like that.
Right.
But I do remember. You know what? Actually, thinking about it. So I was in elementary. I used to do this thing, and I don't know what inspired it. Right? My dad used to work at a computer place, and he would bring home like these big. So I'm old. Okay, I'll be 45 in a couple of weeks, and we had the dot matrix printers. And they were fed by these little wheels with these little spikes on them, right? So he'd always bring home that paper, and it was either all white or it'd be white and green.
Yep.
Was the pattern. And so I'd always draw on them. And so I used to draw these things called Bean Wars. Yeah, they were little like stick figure beans.
Okay.
And somewhere I still have them, or they're in my mother's attic, but they were super stupid. But I remember my father used to love them.
Right.
And so I had like G.I. Joe beans. They had a Rambo bean, you know.
Okay. I just pulled them up. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that is, but I mean, it could be a thing now, but you know, we're talking in the early 80s. I just called it Bean Wars.
Right.
So it wasn't a thing. Even if it's a thing now, it's a thing now.
Yeah, there's definitely a Bean Wars
so.
now for sure.
So it was a lot like, you ever played Worms?
Don't think
okay,
so,
you
no.
would know, right? But some of your listeners have probably, and viewers have probably played Worms, and it's a video game by Team 17 Studios, and it's been going on for years. It's a super fun war strategy game. And it's set up old school where you have the scrolling box and it just randomly places your worms in different places, and it's a turn-based game. And my Bean Wars, I guess, was set up a lot like that, where I would just draw and they'd just be fighting each other and doing all this silly shit. But I remember my dad really liked the Bean Wars, and maybe that's where it kind of started.
Right.
Because I don't remember really paying attention to cars. Like, I like the General Lee and I like Knight Rider and the Fall Guy truck and stuff like that.
And the El Camino.
Yeah, the El Camino, greatest vehicle ever.
Hell yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah, no, that thing's ugly as fuck. But there's a guy in Michigan that I became friends with, and he actually had a pretty badass one.
It's because they're all badass.
His was badass. He had his stance perfect, but I think they're kind of like this between cars and art. But
yeah, it's
cars won out.
So we have your NSX, right?
Yeah.
What got the ball rolling on this piece of art? This is a gorgeous piece of art. What got the ball rolling on that? What flipped the switch in your head like, yo, I want to do that?
You know, it's a good question. I'm glad you asked. But first, I had to do the color correction because I got power like that. So what happened with that car is the same thing that happened to my last model. I didn't do anything. What usually happens is, and there's kind of a weird way to approach this. Somebody on the other side of the world thought they would make money off of the stuff that I designed. And that's usually how these things work. So the other car that I have, and I could bring it over here, is almost as if someone shot my car with a shrink ray. And a friend of mine sent me the eBay link. He's like, hey, did you know about this? I'm like, no, I did not. So at that point, you have two things you could do. You can bitch and moan about it, right? Or you can just be happy, bitch moan about it, and then be happy that somebody copied your stuff. Or you can try to pursue and work out a deal.
Right.
Now, the reality of it, because when I tell people, they're like, oh, I hope you got paid good money for that. And I go, well, no, I didn't get paid anything for it. But the reality is, unless it's Hot Wheels or Revel or Tonka or some big name, they're not bankrolled by hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. They're just some hobbyist on the other side of the world trying to make a buck.
Right.
And the same thing with the car that you got. Someone said, hey, have you seen this? I go, no, I have not. And so I reached out to them. And one of the things that people always tell me is like, oh, congratulations or welcome to the world where everybody steals your shit. There's nothing you can do about it. You should just be happy that someone did that. It's like, I can see that in a certain sense, but I also know that it took me a year to design this wrap.
Right.
You know? And one thing that you see with a lot of cars, and there's other cars that have stolen my stuff, and then someone says, well, it's not yours, it belongs to Macross. I was like, yeah, but you can tell that they've stolen things that I designed in Photoshop.
Right.
I know that because guess what? I designed it. So you know your own work. And but they're not making a lot of money. So a friend of mine, Joseph Gatt, which is an episode, he's an actor. He's in Thor and he's in.
Yep, I remember that one. I haven't watched that one though.
Or listen to it. Yeah, that's a good interview. You should check out the Joseph Gatt interview. So he's in Dumbo. He's in a bunch of movies, and he has a pretty decent role, except for Thor. He's a frost giant, gets killed by Heimdall. But anyway, you know, I talked to him on the phone, and he said, I was already thinking this, but he said, use this as an opportunity to promote yourself. So what I did is I talked to the manufacturer, and I did the same thing in both instances. I said, you know what? I don't want any money. but it'd be really nice if you put my name on the car.
For sure.
And so they did, you know. And
Yeah.
so with the first car, I was like, you know, inspired by Jhae Pfenning's NSX and follow him, you know, NA2 NSX on Instagram. And I did a signature panel. So the other car that you don't have has a little signature on it, like an etched one.
Okay.
Yeah, because yours is signed too. You're like, wait,
Right,
did he sign mine? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at
Yours has a wet signature on it. Yeah. And really that's how it happened in both cases and I've seen other ones, and it's like people tell you don't have any power, but in a weird way, Izzy's trying to get in here. In a weird way, I do, because I've befriended Harmony Gold, which is the people in America who brought us Robotech.
Okay.
And it's kind of a weird thing because they're known as being extremely litigious.
Right.
Like they flew the hell out of anybody who uses anything of theirs. But in becoming friends with the CEO and the creative director in 2018, they kind of have my back when I need it.
Right.
And so, you know, there's been times where they've reached out to me and they said, did you authorize this? And I said, no, I did not. And then they cease and desist it.
Right.
So I kind of have that sometimes, you know, but that's how the model that you have came to be. I just reached out to YM Model. I said, hey man, let's make this work. You know, you're making 500 of these. There's people all over that are buying them from you and making their money. I don't want any money, but what I would like to do is start taking pre-orders so I can sell them to my fans.
Right.
Or fans of my car, actually, not my fans of my car. Are you willing to work with me? And they said, yes, we're willing to work with you. So that's how it happened. And they're almost out. So I just placed the last order that I'm going to be doing. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Well, this kind of took a turn because when I asked, I was asking how the car itself, the inspiration for you actually going through and doing the car itself.
Misunderstood that.
But so we'll get to that after this. This was not even your idea.
Someone stole it from me, because actually that mold is from the Spoon Sports NSX, and the Spoon Sports NSX is it's like yellow and blue. But so they took the Spoon Sports NSX with all the body parts and they put my livery on it. That's what it's called on the racing, but they made it gray. That's why I told them, I said, make this based on, what does it say on there?
Inspired by.
I said, don't say it's Jhae Pfenning's VF1 SNSX because mine doesn't really look like that, but say inspired by my NSX, which they did.
Wow. I mean, that's awesome that it sort of worked. I mean, it worked out.
It worked out. It's cool. Yeah. You know what? You know why? Because at the end of the day, I'm just some guy, right?
Right.
And all this is going to be in the past at some point. Man, isn't it cool to kind of sit across the room and be like, that's my fucking car up there with my name on it. And there's people around the world who liked it enough to buy one.
Yeah.
I said, that's pretty fucking cool. Because that's the reason why I didn't say kill it.
Right.
Because I could have said kill it. And I thought no one would have an opportunity to get it. And there's people who genuinely want it. They don't even know me. They don't even know the car, but maybe they love anime. Maybe they love Macross in Japan. Maybe they love Robotech everywhere outside of Japan, you know? So.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good way to end that story, but damn, I thought you put out the plan, you was going to make models of it. And that's what I thought this was. But yeah, like
something funny is I'm still working on that because I had my car 3D scanned.
Okay.
Like recently, like within the last year, but it would have been more accurate because of how anal I am. There's things about that car and the other car that I don't like. So do
you stop it, or are you still sort of working on
I'm still in the works. It's still in the works. Someone's fixing the mesh.
So the inspiration for the actual one that you did, the real life one, where did that come from?
Well, that was one of my favorite cartoons when I was a teenager. And in kind of a weird way, and this isn't hopefully to get me in trouble, but having an artistic background, right? I would go places and I would see, because it's not the first car where someone has tried to put a military inspired wrap on it. Fighter jet,
Right.
bomber. You see a lot of bomber
Oh yeah.
wraps.
Oh yeah.
But I would walk around, I'd look at them, I'm like, that's kind of cool. And I'd get close, I'm like, I could do better.
Right.
Never design one, but I just pay attention to so much detail. It's like, don't think that should go there.
Right.
So then when I decided to, and this is going to sound crazy, but at some point, when you want something so bad and you finally get it, you fully enjoy it, hopefully, but then you've had it and you've enjoyed it and you're not sure what else to do.
Okay.
And that it is my car. So I've wanted an NSX for 20 years since I was in high school. And I've had it at the time 5 years, and I've changed it up every once in a while, just a little bit. But I was looking back at it and I was like, there's a show called SEMA, and it's one of the biggest shows in the world for cars, if not the biggest show, and it's in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah.
And I said, maybe I should go for SEMA. I want to do something different, because I was getting bored of my car a little bit. And I said, well, why don't I design a wrap for it? And I said, well, what would I do? Right? Okay, well, maybe I'll do a fighter jet wrap. I like fighter jets. That'd be kind of cool.
All right.
And then from there, it was like, well, I asked a few of my friends, I go, hey guys, what if I designed it after, I'm just going to say Robotech. So there's people around the world who may watch this and be like, fuck you, Robotech. Yeah, Harmony go. But if Robotech never came on American TV, I would have never have known. And I'm smart enough to understand my trajectory in life to where had Macross come 2 years later, I may have never cared.
Right.
And it never would have happened. So I 100% give credit to Harmony Gold and Robotech. And Robotech wouldn't exist without Macross. I understand that, but not to get in that, because that in itself is for another podcast. So I figured, why don't I do a Robotech, a Veritech wrap? And so I had to decide, do I want to do a VF1J, which was Rick Hunter's, or do I want to do a VF1S, which was Roy Folker's, which eventually became Rick Hunter's? And I consciously made the decision to do the VF1S livery because it's more recognizable around the world.
Okay.
And because the Jolly Rogers exists in Naval Air Force without Robotech and Macross. That's something that's gone on for years and years and years on planes. You can look it up. The Skull Squadron. So I decided I would do a Macross / Robotech livery wrap on the NSX, and there's not a better vehicle to do it on. The Japanese supercar from the design in the late 80s, released in the 90s. The Veritech fighter, or Valkyrie fighter, mind you, based loosely on an F-14 Tomcat. Like, there's no better vehicle to do it. And so that is why I eventually went forward, because I wanted to do something different. I wanted to challenge myself to make something more detailed than any other, at the time at least, any other fighter jet wrap on a vehicle. And I wanted to make it accurate. So I went and visited a couple air and space museums. I got up close to, if they had an F-14, it was golden for me, but not all of them had it. So I got up close, I took pictures. Because other than that, all I had were like these little reference pictures off of the internet. Even for Macross stuff, I'm like, what is that? And you get up close and you're like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, I can use it, or I shouldn't put it on the car. And so that's basically the reason why I decided to go after wrapping my car like that. Number one, because no one's done it before. I combed the internet, and at best you could see like stickers that people put on their cars, but no one's done a wrap. As you know, wraps are relatively new.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years or so to that level. Anyone who's done a Macross VF1S enabled or VS inspired thing there's a few people out there that have done okay, but no one's done it to the level I have. No one. And they still haven't. And they probably never will, because you have to have somebody who not only loves cars, but knows what they want in a design, has a love Macross or Robotech, and that you're not going to get that trifecta probably ever. Because there's one thing, I don't really know how to use Photoshop very well, but I took courses while I was designing this wrap, because I knew that there's so many people out there that are so good. I couldn't afford to pay him to design my wrap.
Yeah.
And even if I could, they can't get into my head because they don't have that passion and that drive. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do 100% of it myself. I'm gonna do all the research myself. I fly every week. Usually, I always have a window seat. I always look out and stare at the wing and think to myself, what am I missing? What's new this week? What can I incorporate? Would it make sense for me to incorporate this in my design? Or is it strictly something that's only on a commercial jet, therefore it would look dumb as shit on my car? So that's the whole design process and how the car ended up looking almost like this. It doesn't have the rockets and stuff on top.
Right.
It doesn't have the strike package. Yeah.
Too bad. That'd be cool. That's the next step, right?
Here's the thing. It kind of was. No, all jokes aside.
Yeah,
it kind of was. In 2019, I had to decide if I wanted to go back. In 2020, I was going to go back to SEMA. And this is before the pandemic. And I thought to myself, there's really only one thing I could do from here to take it next level, because it could be hard to get into SEMA. And it would have involved, like, I had all the plans. This time I had to hire people to help me, because there's no way I can. You have to understand where your limitations are.
Oh yeah.
And then you reach out to people can help you. And so I'd already started to assemble a group of people who can kind of help me take it to that next level. But I had to sit back and decide at the end of the day, who am I doing it for? I don't have just stupid cash.
Right.
It would have cost me I estimated probably 30 grand before I was able to do anything super cool. And I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. Been there, done that. The only thing I think cooler that could have happened to me with this wrap is having the car in a movie. I think that's really the only thing, or being on the cover of a car magazine. I made it into a car magazine, and big shout out to Pass Mag for having me in there. But for a lot of us car guys, making it on the cover is like one of those check boxes. It's like, I've been there. And there's some guys, like I have a friend out here, Hollywood, and he's got an entire room full of trophies. He's just sick of them. He's on so many magazines, but
yeah,
and
for the little guy, that's for
the little guy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You said it right, but there's really nowhere else for me to have gone. So that's the reason why my car isn't wrapped right now. I don't want to spend the money on it. It's just so expensive. And at the end of the day, for who and why?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, your car is going to be on the cover of this episode. You've made it, sir. Congratulations.
Thank God. Yes.
So, I've spoken to you before, and I think you asked the question for one of your what makes a car guy or a car person. I can't remember exactly how you had it worded, but I'm like how you started when you said you're a fan of the automotive scene, but that's not really you, like in terms of career wise. For me, it's even more so because I love looking at them. Like, your car looks badass. The car I tagged that, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. You might know it. Panas, whatever it was.
Panos. It's one of those. Yeah. Someone somewhere knows how to pronounce it correctly, but unlike Porsche and Porsche, it's not definitive.
Yeah, so that car, I've never even seen or heard of that brand or that maker till last night, and that shit looked amazing as hell. And I love the El Camino. I like weird looking cars. The Panos and El Camino, definitely a weird looking car. So I'm that like admirer. I look out, I see him like, yo, that shit looks cool as fuck. But when it comes like the nitty gritty, I can't do a damn thing. Like I can change a tire and change my oil, and that's about it. But I'm a fan.
That just makes you a mechanic, though. That doesn't necessarily make you a car guy.
But it makes me an admirer of the artistic nature of what goes into planning and, in your case, designing an entire wrap. Because I'm not yet finished with your interview with the Acura, the former lead strategist. But like, I had a CRX back in the day, which I love that damn thing. I had a 95 Integra, which I love that thing as well.
What year was your CRX, if you don't mind me asking?
88. Called it the Red Rooster, and it was cool as shit.
Red Rooster. Okay.
Yes, sir. Call that picture right. But so I'm that I'm that car guy that looks at them like, yeah, that's cool. It's cool color, cool design, cool this, cool that. Especially now with all the futuristic stuff we got going on.
Right.
What is it about NSX?
Sometimes you just see something and you just know. Maybe I was in high school, and I used to hang out with a group of friends, and one of the guys, Ryan, I think he was the first person to just fall in love with him, although we all kind of fell in love with him. When you're in high school, you know, you just whatever. But I always remember there was a black one in town. I grew up in Garland, Texas. And I think he's the guy who, he was into gaming. I think he was one of the founders of id Software, which is,
I've heard of it.
yeah, it's old school.
Yeah.
So you know Doom.
Yep.
And Duke Nukem.
Oh yeah.
So he was a part of one of those, and maybe Duke Nukem, which I don't think was id Software, but he used to have it, and he would drive by, and he had a personalized license plate, I Nukem.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'll never forget that. Yeah, and it's just one of those things where everybody in the group's like, every time we see one, oh, NSX, NSX, NSX.
Yeah.
And as I got older, even in high school and just after high school, I remember I would go and see, back in those days, there was no like pull out your phone and take a picture.
Right.
Like you had the.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And so a friend of mine,
these days
go
don't
out.
know.
Yeah, we would go out and we would go to car dealerships and we would just take pictures of cars.
Mhm.
You know, when it was something special, when you can just spot like a cool car out and about. And you have to understand, you're 17 to 19, you know, so you're not really traveling far anyway, even by today's standards, you know. But there was just something about that car. It was just so sleek and so pure. And then I sat in one once, and then it was over. You sit in the car and it just feels like an extension of yourself. And it was that and the 993 Porsche, which is like the 94 through 97, I think. Maybe 93, actually. 93 to 97 Porsche. Anyway, but you sit in the car and it feels like it should be yours. And so at that point, it just became kind of an obsession, you know, and every time you'd see an NSX, it's like, oh God, one day I'm going to have that car. And I picked it because it was an attainable sports car.
Yeah, it's not too crazy.
Right. It wasn't millions of dollars like the McLaren F1. At the time,
Yeah.
the McLaren F1 was $680,000 plus imported fees to federalize and defederalize it. And then at the end of the day, you're up to like 1.2.
Right.
But yeah, that's really what it was. It just became an obsession. And over the years, I just kept dreaming about having that car. And the car was never whole in the dreams. Like I think I had one that was on 4 like donuts, spare tires. I think I had one where I was driving a 4-door NSX. I had one where you'd step on the gas, I really would hardly go anywhere.
Right.
But I mean, that's just one of the cars that dreams were made of for me and for many people around my age.
And so when you finally bought one, is this the only one you've owned, or have you owned others?
It's the only one. 2012, August 2012.
What's the first thing you did? Where's the first thing you went? Where'd you go?
So actually, I had just started doing the work that I'm doing now. And I won't go into it, but based on whatever I was making at the time, this is adult money, right?
Right.
And it's like, holy crap, I could finally afford one of these things. I had to convince the wife, but I could finally afford one of these things, and found one that was a really good price. And I picked it up in Minnesota, and I have family in Minnesota, so we were visiting my parents, and I flew in from work. My family flew in, and we did the thing with the parents, and then I took them to the airport, my family, because when they got done, they were going to fly back home, and I was going to fly back to work. And so I scheduled a test drive or just to check out this NSX in town. So I went out and checked it out, and I was like, all right, I'll be back. So after I knew that I was going to pick up that car, I ordered a shift knob online. And that was the first thing I did, man. As soon as I bought the car, I drove it as far as I could because I was going to pick up my wife. I bought the car in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and my wife was coming over from Michigan to Old Milwaukee. To Milwaukee. Old Milwaukee's a beer. To Milwaukee. So I had to get from Minneapolis to Milwaukee on a red-eye flight. So just outside of Milwaukee, I pulled over at a McDonald's and I took off the old shift knob and put on the one that I bought for the car. So that's the very first thing I did with the car. And I remember taking it to pick up my wife, and the first thing she said when she looked at it, she was like, wow, this is it. This is your car. Because it just doesn't look as good in pictures as it looks.
Oh, for sure.
You know? And that was it. And that was and then what we did is we went to Green Bay that night. I was so tired. Went to Tony Rome, had food, and then we went to Green Bay and a hotel and parked it out front. And I remember in the morning, some little kid was like, man, wow, man, do you play for the Packers?
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I take pics of your car? I'm like, hell yeah, you can take pics of my car, kid. Go ahead, you know?
It was like your first 2-3 days having it.
The first day.
First day.
Yeah, so the asshole is the guy who says, stay away from my car.
Yeah.
Because that's what dreams are made of, you know?
Right.
For some of us, I'm like, hell yeah, kid. And it's not like I said you can jump up and down on the hood.
Right.
You know, take as many pictures as you want. You want to sit in the car, open the door. Hey, you sit in the car. You want me to take a picture of you sitting in the car? Like, there's no harm in that. There's no harm, you know? Been there, done that. In fact, the very first time I ever drove the car, which you didn't ask, but that was a complete stranger.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a kind of a cool story in itself. But yeah, so that's the first time we ended up driving up around them to Mackinac Island, took the bridge over Traverse City, went to a few wineries, and then went home to Grand Rapids. And the first thing I remember, because people were like, well, were you jump up and down? Were you all excited?
Yeah.
I was like, well, no, because I had wanted one for 20 years. So it was more of it was a sense of accomplishment. Like, wow, I did it. If I win the lotto tomorrow, I'm going to be excited as hell.
Right.
I don't play, but I always talk about winning. But to me, it's like unexpected equals excitement. You're excited when your team wins the game at the buzzer beater, right?
So basically, a part of you just always knew at some point.
It's wanted. It's just a sense of accomplishment. And when I was driving home, I was 1 block from the house, the last stop sign that I would need at a T in a neighborhood. Go left and I get to my house, go right and I leave the neighborhood. At that stop sign, I looked over, saw my house, and then I got a big smile on my face. Like, it's real.
It's about to be in my garage.
20 years. And I didn't break down and cry or any of that stuff. But it's just, that was it. You know, it's like, wow, this is finally mine.
You still get that feeling?
No. But I enjoy the car every time I drive it.
Right.
And if I had to sell it tomorrow, I would. Well, I don't want to be forced to sell it.
Right.
But I would sell it. And a lot of people who have this car say, I'm never selling it. You're crazy. Well, life's all about opportunity, dreams, and passing those dreams on to other people. And I've been able, after 20 years, I can say I've owned this car now. It'll be 9 years this August. And I've fully enjoyed the car. And a lot of people can't say that about their dream whatever.
Right.
Dream house, dream boat, dream car. And it's okay to let it go because I fully enjoyed it. And I think I learned early on that sometimes you just have to let go. Life goes on, or it doesn't, but you have to let go. And so I would be okay letting go of the car just because I've enjoyed it. But I'm fine with keeping it forever too.
Yeah. Is there a car out these days, or is there another car that's scratching that itch a little bit?
There is. There's a few cars, and I wish I had more money. I know that sounds ridiculous to say. We all wish we had more money.
We all do, yeah.
But I have some friends that are really humble that have a lot of money, and they can just get whatever car they want.
Right.
And it's really nice, and they don't brag about it. They might post it as soon as they get it, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I have a friend, Greg, actually, who I don't know how much money he makes, but he does okay. But one thing that I admire about him, he's around my age, he goes out and he buys the cars that he's always wanted growing up. So he may go out and buy a low mileage Fiero, you know, or something, just normal cars you've wanted growing up. And he has one of these NSXs. He's on his second one. You know, I really admire that. For me, there's a few cars I really like. The new NSX. I call it the new NSX. Been out since 2017. Would I get rid of my car for that? Maybe. My car is significantly modified now, and I have a lot of fun with it. But sometimes you just want to get into something, and that's what I miss about travel. Is you can get into a brand new rental car every week. Right. And it doesn't have to be a badass car. It's just something new and different. And you get to explore, okay, what do they have in here? Is it plastic? Is it leather? What kind of infotainment center does it have? Would I want to take a road trip in this car? You know, and I've had rental cars that have maybe had made me think like, man, God, this would really be nice. It would be nice if I had this, you know? So that's why something new like the NSX, but there's some older cars too that I really like. So I'm trying to, I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm trying to pivot it to later this year where maybe I keep my car and I pick up another one of my cars that I've always wanted. This doesn't cost as much as my car, but it's still kind of expensive. Or maybe I end up selling my car and end up getting a new NSX. But there's not a lot of cars out there I could really consider, I can really see myself selling my car for, even as a down payment, and being truly happy with everything that comes along with it.
Right.
Like McLarens are really nice, but they're notorious for being pieces of shit. You know, and if I'm going to buy something that's going to break down and be a piece of shit, I better have wanted it for a long time. And there's one car I'm looking at that is kind of a piece of crap, but it's beautiful at the same time.
What car is that?
I don't want to jinx it. I'll tell you offline.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm curious now. I'll tell you
offline.
I mean, I know it's the El Camino. You just don't want to tell everybody. I understand.
I got 6 of them out back. Use them for flower pots.
I'm about to say use from Demolition Derby, I bet, huh? So, you mentioned that before your NSX here, you had another model of a car that you designed?
I didn't design it. It's the same thing. I'll bring it over here. Just showing my wife that I'm on a call here. So,
hello, wife.
Because I told my daughter and it didn't get any quieter, much to my disappointment. Let me go grab it. You can even re-ask the question. Just to reset. Sorry for the interruption.
It's all good.
All right, take 2.
So back. So you said earlier that before the idea for this one came along, you had another model?
Yeah, and it really wasn't the idea for that one because someone just took my shit and started making miniatures and we worked it out. But I had this one.
Oh, okay. So I misunderstood you. I thought it was a different designed car.
No,
it's
just this
design. One. Okay.
Yeah, it was just this one, and this one is it's a far more accurate representation of the car. It's like stuck in this packaging here, but like the other one, this was done without my permission. But if you look here, Jhae Pfenning's BF1S NSX. So I told these guys, I said, you know what? I want to have some design over the packaging.
Okay.
And I want you to remove certain decals off the car. But this is what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
So at the bottom, it has kind of my signature on there. Jhae Pfenning's BF1S NSX. And this is a lot more accurate to what my car actually looks like, or looked like.
Yeah, even from here, I could tell that there's better detail than on this one. I could tell just from
there's
there.
A size difference.
Oh, for sure.
So that one's 172, or they say it's 164, but I'm telling you it's 172. And this is 143 scale.
Yeah, a little bigger.
So yeah, the other one is like 7/8 the size, if not even smaller than that.
Do the wheels? Because obviously I haven't opened this up. Do the wheels turn on this one?
I don't think so, and they don't. I don't think they don't roll on this one either. In fact, I have two of these because I had more. I did the whole pre-order thing, but one of the original group it arrived broken.
Oh shit!
Like the wheel was just snapped off.
Damn.
Like if they were $5 rims.
Right.
So that one's up there, and then I wanted to have one that had nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So someone told me to set this aside, and they were going to buy it, and then they never did, and I never reminded them.
So before we go, I wanted to ask something a bit personal, if that's okay. And
ask away.
If it's not, we'll just cut this out. So you've mentioned on your show a time or two, and me and you have talked off of that through messaging about it, that you were adopted, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you have no idea about your birth parents, correct?
For the most part.
And so the reason I wanted to bring that up, because I'm not adopted, but my father left before I was born. So I have one picture of him growing up. I have more because I've connected with his family. I mean, he passed away 2011, and I only found out about that like 3 years ago. So, there's that. But
did you have a father figure growing up?
No.
Okay.
No. Single mother and grandmother, 100%.
Okay.
So, I wanted to know, because obviously you are older than me. You got some grays going on up there.
Hey man, I try to clean myself up before this call, man.
But have you tried to, because I remember mentioning to you about ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
And you said I think you hadn't done it, but you had thought about it. Is there something holding you back?
No, I kind of told myself, because I've had over the years thoughts, and I've actually gone as far as looked up, how many hospitals are in Savannah, Georgia. That's where I was born. How many were in Savannah in 1976. So back in my day, we had sealed adoptions. I don't know if that's a technical term.
Nah, for Georgia, yeah.
For a lot of states.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, and the amount of effort it would take to really dig, and I know a lot of people, and I'll get around to answering this, but I know a lot of people who are adopted who have reconnected with their families. And one of the things like Dr. Drew says is like, usually you don't want that. It's like Joe Dirt,
Right.
The movie Joe Dirt, where he finds his parents and they're complete piles of shit,
Right.
And but you have to be ready for that. For me, I have a life book, and in that life book it has pictures of my mother, other siblings, myself, and some other guy, which I assume would be my stepfather on the first family. And no one knows who my birth father is except for my birth mother. That's the story. And there's things that we can assume from there. Like, I don't look like anybody else in these pictures that I have.
Right.
And I feel it's kind of guilty, but I did because I never knew what I was mixed with. I knew I was, and this is going to surprise some people, and some people are going to be like, I knew it. I knew I was at least half Vietnamese.
Okay.
I knew that because I have the pictures. Okay. But I never knew if I was Vietnamese and black, Vietnamese and Indian, Vietnamese and what. I could just be two full Asians, because there's some dark ass Asians out there in some of these other small countries. And I never knew what I was. So 4 years ago, I finally did the ancestry just to know.
Right.
Can you imagine you go your whole life not really knowing what you are? And my life got a lot easier once I started going bald. Or shaved my head bald. I didn't start going bald. I graduated in 1994, and I had kind of wavy hair, and people are always like, what are you? What do you mix with? What are you? And it was just easier to say I'm black and Vietnamese. And people are like, oh, okay, but you still get like, what are you?
Right. Oh yeah.
And one thing about the Asian half is a lot of Asian people. This is gonna get me in trouble, but their parents, they could be racist as fuck. So in this society, all we talk about is black and white.
Mhm.
Oh, some of these cultures that come in, they're racist as fuck too.
Mhm.
And a lot of it comes because people always give them a hard time.
Right.
So I understand that. But the people my age growing up with me, like when they find out you're half Asian, man, you're in there.
Really?
They got your back. They're like, hey, he's half Asian, he's one of us, And I've never forgot that. So I've always been so proud to be half Asian, half Vietnamese, but I never knew what else I was. So once I took that test, it came back, and I'm basically Vietnamese and black, like Vietnamese to like 50%. It started at like 47, it worked itself up to 50% because they give you updates. So I've told myself that maybe when my parents pass, I'll try harder, and I don't care about the father's. He's gone in the wind wherever he is.
Right.
And what makes it difficult on like the ancestry stuff is I'm never gonna find, like, my best match would be a second cousin, because no one looks like me, right? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I would probably never have a first cousin match. So I'm always looking for the second cousins, and I found a few second cousins on my birth father's side somewhere, and I've actually communicated with some people. But I really I'm a lot more interested in finding my Asian family.
Oh, for sure.
But the thing is, those type of tests are only as good as the people interested in them and participate in them. And a lot of Asian people don't care about that shit. That's why you get a lot of white people, a lot of black people, and that's how you find people more, because they're more curious to find out their heritage.
And this age groups are more close knit anyway, so
they are
having a branch like that, nothing they really tend to worry about.
Yeah, and that's not 100% for everybody, and hopefully people watching this understand. We're not trying to paint people with a large brush, but majority is majority. Even if it's 51 to 49, it's still majority. And so it's difficult, but I think at some point, because somewhere out there I have at least 2 siblings and maybe a third. I have 2 older brothers and maybe a younger sister based on these photos, or it's my birthday and there's somebody new in the picture. But the other pictures I've seen, it's just been 3 of us, and I'm the only one that looks like this. So it might be funny. I might even follow them on Instagram, or maybe they follow me on Instagram.
Just don't even know. Yeah.
How crazy would that be? And I'm not an Instagram star. I don't have 50,000, 100,000, 1 million followers, but the world's weird.
Yeah.
The world works in weird ways. And so that's kind of the answer. Is it's like I have kind of looked, but not that hard. But I think at some point I'm going to look harder, and maybe it's today, but it's like, where do you start? Do you start posting up pictures of yourself? And because really, a thought of mine is maybe I upload pictures to Google and let Google do the work. Because you know how we all do like Throwback Thursday.
Right.
Way back Wednesday, and they post a picture of themselves when they were in 3rd grade. When you're in 3rd grade, you probably don't look much different than you do when you're in kindergarten. So that, I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting, but it's not out of spite. I think I haven't looked as aggressively out of respect. To me, the respect is for the people who raised me.
Right.
So that's kind of a really long way to answer that question. And no, it wasn't too personal.
Okay.
At all.
Yeah. I get that, and I like how you added right then respect for the parents that raised you. I like that. That was, because you see there's some movies and TV shows that the adoptee that goes through and does that, and then the parents get upset. So it's good that that's how I see it anyways.
Well, also another thing is I have peers, like I said, that have found, in fact, one of my friends, Joey Luna, he's going to be on the podcast at some point. That's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a story and your viewers. So I'm sitting at Starbucks with Joey, Matt, and Jordan Lindsay. And we go on this short impromptu car cruise, probably, I don't know, 8-9 months ago. Hell, maybe it was a year ago now. I don't remember. I said, hey, you guys want to get some coffee real quick on our way back? He's like, sure. We're all sitting there. No, this was definitely 2020 because Starbucks had already opened back up, but there was like hardly anybody in there.
Right.
We're sitting in there and it's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And Joy's like, hey, well, I was adopted when I was a kid and I'm going to go and meet my mother. I've been talking to her and stuff like that. And I've been in contact with my little brother. Like, oh, that's so cool. You're adopted. I'm adopted too. Well, so was Jordan Lindsay. So 3 out of 4 of us at that table, car guys.
Didn't even know it beforehand.
Didn't know it. I mean, we're cool, but we're not like the best friends. It's one of those
Right.
things where you say hi when you see them out and about. It might even be a head nod, but that's it.
Yeah.
Except for Joey. I talk to Joey every once in a while. So I'm hoping to have Jordan Lindsay and Joey Luna sitting in here, and we're going to have an episode about car guys and about adoption and our lives growing up. So we talk about crazy. But I guess the point of that is there's people that have been able to reunite.
Mhm.
And it's not always a good thing, but man, how neat would that be? There's no bad that would come from me reuniting with siblings, and
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, I'm interested to see how that goes. Definitely. Because I know, because I did mine 3-4 years ago. And just like you say, if I find any, or you were saying, if you find anyone, it's probably like a second cousin.
Yeah.
I found that second cousin. I'm friends with that second cousin on Facebook. And if that second cousin watches this one, they might be a little upset by what I'm about to say. But
Well, at least you'll find out if they really watch your stuff.
Right, definitely, yeah. Through finding them and then finding out that my dad had passed away in 2011. One, that door automatically shut, right? Because it'd been open because I didn't know. But now I know. So that door got shut. But then that door opened to his side of the family. So now I'm like, I can start to sort of piece something together about who he was from their point of view. Because obviously my family told me one thing. They're going to have something different. And yeah, I'm kind of glad that it worked out the way it did. Because what I found out, you guys do you, y'all can stay over there. Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm just gonna leave it at that. To be,
but it's a little closure that's kind of cool,
It definitely was.
Do you look like him?
My oldest brother does.
Okay.
My oldest brother does, and growing up in school, people said I look like my oldest brother. So I guess.
Yeah.
But
right.
I hate that. So there is that too. But man, Jay, thank you. I'm glad you agreed to come on. I've learned a lot more about you, and tell everybody where they can find you.
Thanks, Red. You can find me at, let's see, I don't know where you can find me. You can follow me on Instagram at NA2NSX. Red will take care of that. And that's all car stuff. It's okay if you don't like cars. I do a lot of travel stuff, or usually food, family, dogs, pets, podcast promotion. That's Jhae Travels, JHAE_travels. YouTube. Maybe you've heard enough where you're like, hey, this is a cool guy. Let's go ahead and help him get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And while you're at it, make sure you take care of my man Red.
How about I say, if you get that from this episode and I don't, that'd be rough.
It's Hard Parking Podcast on YouTube. So youtube.com/Hard Parking Podcast. You'll know it's me. You see my ugly face. You see all this stupid crap. That's definitely me. So.
I mean, you can't mistake his voice. He's got that radio voice. He's perfect for a podcast. He's got the podcast voice and everything.
The podcast voice.
Yeah, you got the radio, but radio's dead, so podcast voice. You definitely have that.
Thanks, Red.
Well, no problem, man. Jay, thank you again for coming. Everybody check him out. You don't necessarily have to be into cars. I don't follow cars as much, and I love listening to his stuff. So yeah, Jhae Travels.
You know what? Coming up, we're going to have a conversation about student loan forgiveness. So
that's right. Yeah. So if you're interested in that, which is odd because Jay normally doesn't really get political. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. But Jay, once again, I think for the third time here, thank you very much for joining. And everybody take care.
Thanks.